Hello, I'm Michel Gagné, and you are listening to the Real-Time Visual Effects Podcast, where wizards reside.
You have a gift. You have a passion for creation. There's something inside you that wants to express itself, and that something has led you to explore the world of visual effects, a place where magic happens, and the only limitation is your imagination. All the greatest artists in the world started somewhere, learning and growing into the people they are today. You being here is the first step to building your legacy as an artist. Learn from the best and brightest in the real-time visual effects community. Sharpen your skills and be your best self. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 13 of the Real-Time Visual Effects Podcast. Today's interview is with Vinessa Mayer, and she is a visual effects artist over at Bungie right now. The more and more I talk with people across the industry, the more I realize how diverse visual effects is as a passion and a career. No matter where you come from, you can find a place in visual effects. So it's really inspiring to hear all these different perspectives and stories, and Vinessa is no exception to that. So I'm excited to share her story and take it in. Here we go.
Here is your host, Travis McCallum.
Hey everybody, I have Vinessa Mayer here. She is the visual effects artist at Bungie Studios, working on amazing titles like Destiny 2 and Forza Motorsports, and even our Mortal Kombat 10. It is so awesome to have you here today, Vinessa. How's the weather over there in sunny California?
Actually, I'm up in Washington State, just outside of Seattle, and it is disappointingly dull for July. I think people up here are grumpy about it, want to know who to complain to, because it's just drizzle and clouds, and we earn our sun.
Today's the 4th of July, so it's Independence Day, big holiday. Definitely excited to stay inside, away from all the craziness going on.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a different experience this year with like secret fireworks shows, so people can't gather, but they're all televised.
Yeah, isn't that so weird? Normally we sit outside and we've got these like bleachers and we just watch the fireworks at the park next door, but they announced that they're going to shoot them off in an undisclosed location and we have to watch it on the television. It's like weird. It's not the real thing, you know?
Yeah, that's what we have to do to be healthy, so that's good.
Hey, Vinessa, I want to jump into some of the awesome effects that you've created for these games. But first, I really kind of want to start from the beginning and figure out, how did you get started in visual effects?
Oh, goodness. So I actually really wanted to be an environment artist in the beginning. And I ended up going to school, studying on my own, and then going to school for it at the Academy of Interactive Entertainment. And while I was there, I decided to challenge myself and double major in the programming as well as game art. And because I was double majoring, I was pretty much automatically the tech artist in my art class. And so when we came down to doing our final project, that meant that I got to mess with all the visual effects in Unity because nobody else had any idea how to do it. So my teacher said, here's some links, just play with these in Unity. And so I did, and I started the fireball, and I was just kind of messing around with the values and seeing it change. And I don't know what it was, but I was messing around with it, and I messed around with it for about 6 hours, just seeing all the different things that I could do just by changing it. And it was weird. It was like a time jump. And when I realized how long I had taken on it, I kind of was like, okay, this is ridiculous. But then I just kept looking at it and I realized I could do this for the rest of my life. Like, I really enjoyed environment art and sculpting and stuff, but this was something different. And I never really thought that that was an option. I thought that VFX was something that was just, it was above, what I was trained to do. We didn't have a specific class for it at school. I just didn't even realize, it was within my reach. So this was at senior year of my schooling, and I just immediately decided that that's what I was going to aim for, no matter how I could do it. So I graduated and started an internship as an environment artist, and I started digging into the shaders. I had permission to do that, and I saw that they were authored by a third-party studio that's local and specializes in it. And then I immediately began to just kind of investigate them, and I found out that they had an internship to hire program. And so I went back to my school and asked if anyone knew anything about that and started working toward that and got accepted. And that's pretty much how I got started, how I branched off from environment art to VFX.
Wow. That is incredible. Like hearing you talk about that fireball and how you just got so engrossed in the work and time just flew by and you were like, wow, I did this. And, I didn't even know I could do this. That's a really inspiring story.
It's funny because it's actually like the definition of noodling. It's like change of value and for 6 hours. Professionally, you shouldn't really be, altering a fireball for 6 hours, but, it's fun.
So you said that like you were doubly majored in the programming side and the game art side. Like how does that all like converge into visual effects? And what are the different components that make it such a unique field?
Oh, goodness. So visual effects is interesting because it's kind of like a generalist with an extra layer. And so it really depends on where you are per studio, but you do a little bit of everything in visual effects, a little bit of modeling, a little bit of shader programming and, the particles and everything. But the programming that I have was very useful because it got me in that programming loop logic mind, which is really important for creating shaders and timing and just pretty much across the board. It's important to understand how things work and the value of loops and everything like that. And to be able to understand the basics of shader math. So double majoring really just unlocked that part of my brain, and it really inspired me to understand that I was smart enough to do this, and it wasn't something that was out of reach, which is actually a big problem for a lot of people. I think they don't think that they can do it. So that's pretty much it. It's just, it helped my brain just be there for that, the blend of artistic and of logic like that.
And on the environmental art side, as you made that transition, what are some of the key takeaways that have really kind of like transferred over to visual effects that you kind of found through environmental art? I imagine maybe textures is one of them, but I've never been an environmental artist, so I don't know how they think or what their priorities or what they kind of value in their work.
Well, modeling is actually pretty important. Visual effects is not all particles. It's, it depends on the studio that you're at. Like one studio I worked at, I was technically the particle artist. That was what I specialized in. But here at Bungie, if I need to model something, a shape or something neat that I can apply my shaders to make shader magic and make it look all cool, I need to understand how to model a low poly shape and how to understand how to UV it so that it'll work with my panning textures or what I need to do. And if I can't UV it a special way, then I need to understand how to do things like triplanar projection and things that will kind of work around those seams for me within the shader. So the texturing and modeling really is just the important thing from environment art, and also making sure that your stuff is optimized. If you want to make a cone for like a vortex or something like that, you need to make it so that it's just faceted enough so that people don't see the seams and the facets, but also you still really need to keep it really cheap. It can't just be a million polys.
That's good to hear. I love how you were able to take two very distinct disciplines and combine them into this like superpower. And I'm looking at you in awe because you are able to like articulate so many different valuable lessons from the craft of programming and environmental art. And, who knows, maybe you've even done animation in your life at some time.
Yeah.
So they all come together and converge into this place that we call real-time visual effects. Go on.
Animation is actually very, very important. So when I was at the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, the first year we were there, we had a 2D animation class with a very talented teacher. You wouldn't think that doing 2D drawing animation would be something that's important for games, but it's extra important because you really grasp timing and just the principles of animation like squash and stretch and things like that. So, and that is probably number one when it comes to VFX. Well, maybe number two outside of does this convey what we want it to say. So timing is extra important. Just being able to make sure that explosion is timed right. Basically, everything that looks weird about an effect comes down to timing, I find. Because even if you don't have amazing textures or everything like that, timing will sell what you're trying to say. So learning animation like that on the side or just as a base is incredibly important.
Cool. Now, I know you've been in the industry for around 5 years now, Vinessa.
Yeah.
So thinking back to when you first started, what are some things that you wish that you had known when starting out that you know now?
Oh, man. I think, well, not number one, but one of them is how to be your own advocate when it comes to contract work and navigating the world of contract work. Because pretty much everybody in games is going to start as a contractor in some form. And the first contract I had, I trusted them to really have my best interest at heart. And I mean, they are a business, and technically they really are looking out for the business. So I got really, really undercut on my very first contract. They told me things like, if you value yourself lower or, go accept a lower price, then the manager might decide to take a risk on you, and it helps you get your foot in the door. And so I had my first contract with an incredibly low hourly rate. And I found out later from some people who had been managers at Microsoft or at contract companies that there's a certain number that they pay you per hour, no matter how much you get paid. They pay for you. They pay the contract people. So for example, let's say, and this is an example, the company that wants to hire you will pay the contract company a certain amount of money. So say like $50 an hour. The company that wants to hire you does not know how much of that $50 an hour that the contract company ends up paying you. So the whole argument of if you accept a lower rate, then the manager might take a risk for you is totally not true, because they have no idea how much that you're getting paid. And the only thing that might make a difference is that the contract company might push harder for you if you are cheaper for them, because they take more of that pocket. So it's important to understand how much you are worth and make sure that you at least try and negotiate with a contract company what you're worth.
That's cool. Just thinking about these people who are trying to get their foot in the door as visual effects artists, or just in the games industry as a whole. Do you advocate or have thoughts on, working for free or just trying to volunteer work just to build on your portfolio and say, hey, I worked for this company? What are your thoughts on free work?
Well, so unpaid internships, are we talking about that?
Yeah, that could be one avenue for sure.
Mm-hmm. So as long as you feel like you are honestly getting something out of it, whether it be new skills or just a really good name on your resume, then that's up to you. Go ahead and do that if you feel like you're using out of it. But so many people I see, they sign up for an unpaid internship or free work, and they end up getting assigned things like go through these files and sort them, or doing stuff that is not relevant to their education or their career path. So they don't really get anything out of it, and they'll stay there for a long time hoping to be hired on. And that's kind of the trap that you can get into. As soon as you realize that you're not getting compensated either in experience or money, you need to be able to move on and never ever assume that you're going to be hired on. It's just you're there for what you can get from them in exchange for work for them. And that kind of just goes across the board, just no matter what type of unpaid or free work that you have. So, because it can be very helpful, but at the same time, it is very common for a lot of companies, especially smaller freelance stuff, to promise stuff later that they'll never come through. So you just waste hours and your talent on that.
And one of the hard parts I see in visual effects specifically is we don't really have a lot of internships for it, because there's just a need to hire people for those positions across the board, because we are a high demand field that needs talent that we're willing to pay for. But thinking on that note, is there other areas maybe you would recommend people who just want to get into the games industry and maybe starting off as a visual effects artist may not be the most viable path, quality assurance or, I don't know, even producing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually started in this industry a long time ago as QA. And I did my stint and then left. And it is good, but there's a trap where people will kind of get stuck in where that's their job is QA and they become good at it, which is amazing. But it's always at the sacrifice of their portfolio or their other learning because they're spending 8 hours a day doing that. So it is definitely an excellent way to get in and to meet people, which is very important in the industry. You need to make sure that you don't neglect your real passion because it's probably going to be all your off time that you're able to do it.
And that goes for people that are in day jobs that are not even in the games industry. So say you're in a sales position or customer service at your local Target because you've got to pay bills and put food on the table. You have to be willing to work outside of work to improve your skills. Otherwise, You're just going to be stuck.
When I was in school, I became obsessed with figuring out the difference between people that would fall through the cracks and people who would succeed. And the one thing I found is that even the most talented person, they would get out and they'd have their student portfolio. They wouldn't have any confidence in it, or they would try applying with it and then get turned down a couple times. And they would say, okay, I'm going to rework my portfolio, and they would never get to it. Some amazing people. That's really the difference, because even some people that aren't amazing, they would just keep trying, and eventually they would meet the right people plus the right, time and place, and they would just, fall into their slot. I believe that's part of what happened to me as well. But another thing about it is when you get out of school, a lot of people, they take their portfolio and go, hooray, I have a portfolio, and they apply, and like I said, they get rejected, and then they get, down the dumps and don't want to try again. And so the thing is that your portfolio, your school portfolio, that's work that you're learning the basics on. You are better than that already. So as soon as you get out of school, do apply, but look for feedback, expect to be turned down, and continue to work to replace those assets that you learned in school. So, because every single time you do it again, it's going to be your new best work, and you always want your best work in your portfolio.
So let's say that you, maybe not for the company you're working at right now, but when you are looking at other people's work and you're seeing their portfolios, how do you know when it's good to great? What are the portfolios or the things you look for in effects that really stand out and help you know that this is a talented VFX artist?
So the answer to that question will vary between who you ask. But for me personally, number one is timing. Like I mentioned earlier, timing is pretty much a very essential base for all effects. Number two is, are you conveying what you need to convey? Because a lot of people don't realize that real-time VFX, the job isn't necessarily to make everything sparkly and cool. The job is to communicate something to the player, whether it be you want to touch this, or this will hurt you, this will burn you, or hey, what's that over there? That's kind of shiny, so I should go that way. That's really important. And the third thing is I really like to see creative use of simple tools. And by simple tools, I mean not necessarily tools, but the base skills that apply across everything. So if you only have 2 textures, I want to see how you work with those 2 textures. If your entire portfolio is a bunch of Houdini simulations and things that are more suitable for movie effects, or just it's good if you have a lot of time, but nothing that shows this is what I did with my very basic skills that is creative, then I feel like maybe don't quite grasp the real spirit behind being a production artist in real-time VFX. You're just kind of relying on the tools. I also encourage people, if they have stuff in their portfolio, never put aspiring VFX artist or something like that. You are a VFX artist once when you're ready. That's what you are. So make sure to drill that confidence in. Absolutely.
And it's funny you mention putting constraints on your effects to really tap into that creativity. And I think about some of the contests that RTVFX forums have had in the past, and one of them was create an effect without using a single texture in your materials. And I thought that was very, very challenging, but it really kind of forced you to think on how you can optimize and create these really amazing effects. And y'all here in the audience, y'all can definitely go check out that event that they have in the forums and see everybody's work. Cool. So I want to ask, now that you've been around and you're really involved in the industry, Vinessa, what's got your curiosity? What trends are going on out there that piqued your interest?
So recently I've kind of learned that even though VFX for film and real-time VFX they're kind of cousins, but they're also two different beasts. I've learned that VFX for film has been really interested in the techniques of real-time VFX because processing power of things and just the look is really starting to catch up with pre-rendered VFX. Not that it will match like big budget movie necessarily, but there are tons of weekly TV shows that are looking for quicker, more efficient ways to get their VFX out, because they're doing stuff every week. They don't have months and months to, iterate on a giant storm or anything like that. So film is looking at real-time techniques and trying to kind of learn about that for that. And I find that interesting just because 15 years ago, the look and feel of our effects were good, but I don't think anybody ever would have considered that. But now we're just making such leaps and bounds that we're starting to kind of blend together. I find that interesting and want to see how that will move into the future.
Can you think of any maybe TV shows or movies or studios out there that are doing real-time VFX for the film side outside of games?
I can't off the top of my head. I know that I've seen some shows and thought that's probably real time, which I actually can't remember right now, but I'm pretty certain a lot of Netflix stuff probably is starting to look into that.
Cool. So Vinessa, I want to shift gears here and I want to jump into your workflow. And I want to know, whenever you're creating a new effect from start to finish, whether it be in a personal project or maybe at one of your past studios, what does it look like? If you have an example, that's awesome. But if you have just kind of a generic flow, that's fine too.
The thing about VFX is that, well, at least at Bungie and kind of my own work, is that we don't necessarily have an A to B to C to D type of workflow. It's kind of a MacGyver thing. So we have a problem to solve, and someone will say, okay, here are all your tools. You have like an apple, a rubber band, and a pencil, and I need this to be a realistic explosion. And so it's just more about trying to solve a problem of creating, this, what we need out of the tools that we have. Now, a lot of that, so we don't really focus on the program so much as just learning all we can about the effect. So when we have an effect that needs to be made, we'll kind of say, okay, you want an explosion here, but what's the explosion supposed to be? Like, why do you want an explosion? And a lot of times with designers or people who ask, they're excellent designers, but they immediately think of like explosion, when really maybe we need something else that's kind of a more interesting, like destruction thing. It's like, here's this object needs to be destroyed, but a basic explosion won't work for it. So we have a lot of discussion with a lot of different people trying to determine what are you trying to say here and what is the purpose of it. Because we try to avoid being a made-to-order VFX team. And once we kind of get the idea of what the actual purpose of this effect is going to be, then we will think about a couple of ideas, or me specifically, and I will make some little basic proof of concepts, and I will throw them out and show it off and see what the designer or art director or the client they were making it for, a lot of times they'll see something and go, oh yeah, I love that. Let's go that way. So then I'll start getting feedback and we'll play test, and then understanding if there's something that I need to do with it that needs the support of another team, maybe some new like back-end technical stuff to enable me to make it follow somebody or something like that, and just see what's possible and what people have time for and make adjustments if so. And then I'll do a functional pass, we'll play test that, get feedback on it, like, does this make me nauseous? Or I didn't see it, and we'll try and make changes on that. We'll do a first pass art, then playtest again, and iterate, playtest, iterate, polish, and then document, which is important, especially if it's something new. But yeah, that's pretty much what we go through. And I know it's not a very specific answer, but like I said, it kind of really depends on what the problem is and what tools we have available to work with. So
Now, I like that you mentioned, especially being on a VFX team, you are not just a doer. You are somebody who actively consults and really kind of asks questions to get to the root of any kind of effect that you're creating. You're always asking why. And if you're not getting the answer that needs to be gotten, then you ask why again. You keep asking why until you finally narrow down, the real heart of the problem that you're trying to solve.
yeah.
And the other side you said is that after you go through your iterations, which by the way is very important, you mentioned document. What does that mean to be documenting?
So if we learned anything new about our certain techniques and how they work with the engine, and we had some change, we'll usually document it because somebody else will more than likely run into the same problems and not understand who to go to for that. And they'll have to look it up. So we'll do that. And then we also will take a video of it so that when people are looking for a certain reference of what does this look like, they don't have to drop it in game or whatnot. They can just see it and they can maybe see, oh, here's an individual part that I like of it. And I'm going to use that as inspiration for a different effect. And they can go in there and based on the video, they can open up the effect and really dig into it and see that what made individual part, and so how they can bring that over to their effect. So
perfect. I think about in programming languages, oftentimes, let's say JavaScript, you have // comments that you put in next to your code. Same thing with the Unreal, you can add the comment sections and group things in different areas, even in the blueprints. So documentation is super important because you are not working in a silo. Is a visual effects artist. People are going to see your code, they're going to see their effects, and a lot of times what may be clear to you is not clear to them. But even to you, 6 months down the line, you may not touch an effect, and you come back to you, you're like, what the hell did I create?
Oh yeah. One of my favorite things to happen is I'll have a question and I will look it up and then I'll find the answer. And then I will realize that I was the one that wrote the answer a year ago. So, yeah.
So walk me through what a day in the life of Vinessa looks like from sunrise to sunset. And let's go on a work day, right?
Oh, goodness. Okay. This is going to be pretty boring, but I am an early riser. I'm usually up about 5 a.m. and I log on at 6. And this is going to be a little bit different because it's a work from home now. But as soon as I get up, the very first thing that I do is I run the gauntlet. And this is something that tests me mentally and tests my agility and my ability to resist temptation. And I have to get through the kitchen. And what the gauntlet is my 3 cats wanting food. So I have to dodge them, make sure I don't step on anybody, and I have to resist them mewing at me. And if I can get through the kitchen, then I can log onto my computer. That usually takes me about 20 minutes. So, all right, that's a joke. So yeah, I'll get on and I try and make sure that I stay healthy. I've got a standing desk here with a leaning chair. And I'll usually go for a walk while things are importing, and I'll look up my tasks for the day, see who I have to contact for questions, go ahead and write a to-do list out, queue up those emails if I need to, and then send them off and then work on stuff that I can work on. I will spend a lot of my downtime looking at other people's work and just kind of looking for things that look really cool and inspiration. But yeah, once it gets going, I just kind of work away on my tasks. And like I said, my tasks they vary from task to task. So I can't really give you an exact, description of how I do every task. But then I'll have lunch and I make sure to go for a walk 3 times a day. And then at about 3, I log off. And I make sure that I log off, when I'm off, I'm off. So I can have a separation of work and home life, which is very important, especially when you're working from home and that stuff can blend together. And then I'll have dinner and I usually just mess around with my cats and I do a lot of my hobbies. I take care of my family, and I usually get to bed about 9 or 10 since I get up so early. And yeah, sorry, that's kind of boring, but that's what it is.
You work in games.
Mhm.
Is playing games something you enjoy as well?
Oh, I do enjoy playing games. Right now, I am trying to do a little bit less screen time stuff just because trying to be healthier and make sure I move around. But I do enjoy playing games. I will play Destiny 2, usually on the weekends. I've been playing with my Switch because I can move around outside for that a lot. I really love things like The Witcher and Dark Souls and like Red Dead Redemption. I've been playing Escape from Tarkov. Just kind of whatever I can casually that doesn't take a lot of my time because I like right now I need to get up and I need to move around, I need to be active.
Absolutely. Now, I know you've worked on Destiny 2. What were some of the effects that you created for the game? And what do you feel like were your biggest challenges in creating those effects? And what do you feel like your biggest accomplishments were for the whole project?
Oh goodness. So I'm pretty lucky to have a really good team at Bungie and a lot of support. So
Real
challenge
quick,
wise,
if you could just explain to our audience, what is Destiny 2?
Oh yes, Destiny 2 is a first-person shooter, and it is basically summarized by space magic, where you are basically an immortal guardian trying to save the world or just even kind of live and keep discovering these different things. And it's pretty fun. It's really fun to work on as a VFX artist because you can do a little bit of everything. So I really, if you are not familiar with Destiny 2, I do encourage you to check it out because it's one of those shooters that I really enjoy, and I'm not really a shooter girl in general. So yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of explosions and emissive materials that really kind of light up the screen.
Yeah, it's like techno, like I said, space magic, techno magic. It's pretty fun that way. A lot of bright colors, a lot of mystery, and very sci-fi. But yeah, it's hard to explain other than it's space magic. So yeah, with guns, lots of guns. But yeah, goodness, some of the things that I've worked on there that I'm proud of everything that I do. A lot of it is subtle because I tend to do a lot of environment art, and then I also will support other people on their effects, so I can't really take credit for any of those without listing them off. But some of the things that people might be aware of is I've done a sparrow, an emote, and one of my favorite things I did was the floating bird skull at the end of the Juju quest, Bad Juju quest line. But the most interesting thing that I've done is actually not released yet. But it's coming up really soon, and I'm excited to share it with everybody, but I obviously cannot say anything right now. But that was my first really big project there that I handled all by myself, so I'm excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I know that you're having to multitask on a bunch of different projects in-house, and you're also collaborating with third-party partners, especially in different areas, maybe that not always be visual effects. So all of this really kind of happened during your time at Turn 10 Studios and maybe at other studios as well. But I'm curious, how do you manage that level of activity? And what can you advise to other people to take more stuff on their plate and, I guess, be better at multitasking, if that's a thing?
Oh, man. So as far as working with my third-party partners, which were across the pond, they were in a very different time zone than I was. I'm going to say, there is no I in team, obviously. And the thing that really helped me out at Turn 10 was amazing producers. That would really help me. They would help me schedule my meetings. And so what I could do is I could talk VFX, and I didn't have to worry about all the scheduling and documentation at that time. They would take notes. They would be there early for me for super early meetings. So it was, at a reasonable time for people across the pond. They would help me manage when people had a problem and get those questions to me. And if I had a question, then they would go track down that question that answered the question for me, so I could use my knowledge to really compile it and give that feedback to our third-party vendors. But like I said, just really relying on other people to do their job and let them do their job well. Don't micromanage them unless, definitely don't micromanage anybody, but just trust in your experts and give them guidance when you see fit. that's pretty much the summary of that. Is, I know it sounds weird, it's like when multitasking, do less is kind of the thing, but you have producers for a reason. Let them do their job, and give them credit where credit is due. Definitely always value your producers and your QA. I have to say that. But yeah, and communicate.
Now, I know any kind of job you work that's meaningful is going to have some level of stress to it. What is your way of coping with stress and, dealing with it?
Oh, man. So there's a running joke that I had my eyeliner tattooed on because of stress cries at work. But, make sure that you have hobbies outside of work. Communicate when you're too stressed is important as well, because production and, leadership, they should want, if your company does not want a healthy worker, then please consider going somewhere else, because we need to make sure that the industry is healthy and people are not getting driven into an early grave. But if you're very stressed, communicate your stresses to your manager and understand either you have too much work or you're having problems. If you're having issues outside that are making it hard, because that's what their job is to help you work through that and to accommodate you reasonably to keep you happy and healthy, and so they have someone who's putting out good work. Like I said, make sure to log off from the things that are stressing you out, to completely disconnect if it is work at the time. Just like I said, disconnect from it, do something else. I have some hobbies that involve using my hands, and that really helps stop anxiety because I can focus on that and stress, but and lean on the people that are close to you because they're probably going through the same stress as well. And that's a good way to make sure that the whole team is healthy. If you are being an advocate for stress control, then they will be encouraged to not try and hide that inside, to work through it so that you guys can just have a very healthy team and a healthy workflow, and your company knows how to keep you healthy.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Vinessa. For me, I'm just thinking about my mobile phone. I have to put it away out of sight sometimes and just not think about it, because then I get sucked into all the news, and it's just like this rabbit hole of just what's going on in the world. Or I'll jump onto social media on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it's just like post after post. And it's like those people who just live on Reddit, and all they can do is just kind of live inside that bubble. And sometimes you just got to put it away and just not think about it.
Yeah, you definitely need to it's important to stay up to date in the happenings of the world. However, you also need a time for your brain to vent those things, to process them. So make sure that you disconnect occasionally to let your brain rest and figure that out.
Now, I know you have spent some time as an independent developer creating your own games. What made you do that? And what was your big takeaway from that experience?
So that was while I was in school, and it was when I really wanted to see the whole process from conception to publishing. And now there's a lot of ways that games can be published nowadays. And back then I just kind of went through it with one other person, and the game that we made was pretty good for a first-year student. We had plans to move on to make other games, and I still have plans for those, but I need to find the right people to make sure that it needs to be the right situation to be a good game. And that's kind of one of the things you learn when you do it yourself, is the difference between a game, because anybody can put out a game, but it might not give you the results that you want. There are people who will make a living off of making, games every weekend and putting them out, something similar like a Flappy Bird clone, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more about just understanding the whole aspects of all the things you need to get approved for publishing, and just how to understand marketing and communicating between. Well, my team was one other person, so just like that. So it's important, I think, that everyone maybe try to do that, because there are the tools out there. Anyone who wants to be in games, just to try and get an idea of all the different responsibilities that people have, and accept that you are not going to be good at everything. That's why we have multiple disciplines. But you can still create these stories. If you want to create them, go ahead. Please do. So you make the industry better for it.
That's awesome. I know that you went to the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, and you received a couple of certificates along with a diploma. You already talked a little bit about your experience there, But I was curious, what do you feel like your biggest takeaway was from going to higher education? And do you feel like it's in aspiring VFX artists' best interest to go to school?
Oh, goodness, that's a hard question. So, oh, goodness. AIE was great for me. They came around right at a time when I needed them. So let me backtrack a little bit. I was in QA, and then my contract expired, and the recession of '08 happened. And I found myself just in a situation where I couldn't afford to commute to all the jobs that were available for me, if any. And so I found myself just kind of stuck inside, couldn't afford to do anything. I just had to stay there while my significant other at the time went out and worked on his job. And so I decided that I was going to use the time to try and get into art, which is what I wanted to do. And so I found an online class and I took that, and I used all my savings for it pretty much and went through it, got like A's across the board, and I was encouraged to go to the GDC. And so I went to the GDC, my grandma gave me a gift of the ticket to go, and stayed with a friend on his couch and got there and pretty much realized right away that that school really was like probably 10 years behind the curve. And even though I'd passed everything, they didn't really prepare me for it. So I was not able to compete there. And so that was really, really disappointing. But I kind of decided right then and there that I was not going to give up. So I got a bunch of books from there and was determined to study when I got back and learn everything. And I was determined to try and get a better source of learning than the internet at the time. And so I looked all over and I found this school, which was a nonprofit school. Now, I will say right off the top right now that I don't like for-profit schools. So it depends on the person that you are for school. Like pretty much no matter where you go, it's going to require the same amount of personal investment and effort to succeed. Whether you go to a place that has unlimited resources versus a place that has like the bare minimum resources, it's all up to you. So what I liked about AIE is that it was structured in a way where I could still, in theory, support myself, because it was 2.5 days a week for one art class. And with considering like they had no homework, I mean, obviously it would do better if you studied outside, which I did, but that really helped me there. But one thing that really helped me when I went there was just meeting people and meeting the teachers, meeting other students, being able to talk to people about it, using the networking sources. They would teach me how to network and everything. That helped a lot. So after I learned the basics, it was more about when they let me go, and by let me go, I mean graduate, it gave me the tools to continue my learning on my own. And it really empowered me to say yes to opportunities and to not be afraid of, getting told no. So it kind of depends on the person. You can learn the skills to be in VFX on your own right now, but you have to do a lot of sorting. Real-time VFX is a very good source, obviously, and it can be quicker if you actually do a higher education to get those base skills. Like I said, the Academy of Interactive Entertainment didn't have a real-time VFX class. They have a VFX for film class. And so, it just kind of, do you want that jump start? Make sure that you can afford what you are doing. It really depends on your life, and it really helps speed up the ability to meet people and make friends, which are really important in the industry. It keeps you from being isolated. But there's no reason why you can't do that on your own as well. It takes the extra effort. So it really just depends on who you are.
Cool. I know one of the big organizations you volunteered for was iFest, and you volunteered as a sprite, which I believe is the name they give for volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay. I was curious, what motivated you to do that? And how do you think others should volunteer for things like this?
Oh, goodness. So AIE helped sponsor iFest, so there was that, and we were very encouraged.
I guess what is iFest?
Oh, iFest is the basically independent game festival. Okay. So, yeah, so cool. People who have their indie games come and they show it off and people get to play them and talk to the people. So that's really cool. And it's at the Seattle Center, or at least it was last I checked. But my school helped sponsored it, and they encouraged us to volunteer. And also our game was one of the ones that was being displayed. So
that must have been nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it was. We were a very small team at the time. There were 12 people graduating across all 3 disciplines at the time, because it was probably the second or third year that the school's open. So our game is not nearly as impressive as it is now, as the ones now. But the reason they encourage that is they really help people learn to network. And a lot of people that come in there, they're very introverted and they have these dreams, but the networking and being able to talk part is important. It's very important. So AIE, and this is one of the things I really liked about it, is they do help to get you those skills as well. And that was one of the things that they did for those skills. So volunteering there was great. I got to meet other indie developers, got to talk to them about their stuff in a comfortable environment, got used to interacting with the public. It's just that. And if you have the chance to volunteer for anything in the industry as somebody who's starting out, or even especially a veteran, please do, because that's probably one of the most powerful skills that you can have. You can be a rock star, but if you can't talk to anybody, nobody's going to really want you around. I mean, not want you around, but they just won't think of you when it comes time for something opens up, because you're just not on the front of their mind all the time. And you can be somebody who's learning, and if you demonstrate like, hey, I'm cool, a nice person to be with, I am excited to learn from you, I make people happy that I'm around, and people will remember you. Like, oh, when this opens up, it's like, I have somebody who, they are pretty much entry level, but they are really motivated and they're amazing, and I really can see them blooming once given the opportunity. So, and when I say this, anybody who's afraid of talking to people, please don't think, or somebody that isn't bubbly, please do not think that this is not meant for you. Like, people will love you no matter what you are. You just have to be there, so that people can know that you exist. So it's important to get out there and be,
Totes. Okay. You've got an area in your portfolio aptly named the Michael Bay treatment. I got to ask, what prompted you to do that?
Oh, goodness. Well, explosions are one of the most challenging things for timing. They're asked for in a lot of art tests, and just you see them all over the place, and they're hard to get right. And once you do, they're great. Like, they're an excellent judge of your timing ability. And so I needed to make sure that I had that there. And just, I don't know why, but explosion seemed lame, titled. So Michael Bay is famous for having a lot of explosions in his work. So pretty much coding everything with explosions. So that's just me being me and putting a goofy title on something.
That's awesome. I love the pop culture reference. It's really cool to see that. Vinessa, I'm ready to jump into the lightning round. Quick and easy questions, just like visual effects. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is a perfect one-day getaway in the Seattle area?
So I have one place that I'm not going to tell you about because it's my secret, but I would just say get into the mountains or the rainforests in the state of Washington, because we have some beautiful mountains, and if you live here and haven't been in there once, then you're missing out.
Do you go hiking or camping or all those outdoorsy things?
Yeah, I like to try to. I couldn't as often as I'd like, but now I'm trying to really focus on that.
Cool.
Sorry, that's it. Just go in the mountains and get lost, but not really lost. So do come back.
What video game or app are you using on your phone that is the most fun?
So I don't really game on my phone because I'm not really a fan of just a lot of the pay structures and things on that. But I really like Imager or Imager, depending on who you are. So it's just a place to go through quickly and look at cat pictures and things. That's the thing I use most on my phone. As far as games, I usually do other platforms.
You can see GIFs on Imager, right, as well?
Yeah, or GIFs, depending who you are.
Okay. It's like the whole emoji kind of like thing. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
Oh, goodness. So I'm notoriously bad at cooking, notoriously bad. So my boyfriend does the cooking. He's amazing. He's grew up in a French family, and sometimes this is the reason why I have to go on a diet. But I will eat all the things that are bad for you, like chocolate mac and cheese. I love brie.
Whoa. Come back. Chocolate mac and cheese?
Not chocolate mac and chocolate, comma, mac and cheese.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. No, you know what though? If somebody came out with that, I might take a bite, just out of curiosity. Yeah.
What is your favorite book or podcast you've listened to recently?
Oh, goodness. Let's see. I haven't done something recently as far as book or podcasts, aside from this one, which is pretty neat. But I've been really loving the YouTube series from Diva Dirt League. I discovered that a couple of months ago, and I just been binging it because I'm a huge, I like Epic NPC Man and all the board series. It just really is something that I can relate to. So it's just nice to see that.
That sounds like a pretty cool name, Epic NPC Man.
Yep.
I want to check that
all
out.
about just the life of an NPC and in an MMO, and is pretty great. Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Best advice for a first-time visual effects artist or people looking to get into the industry?
Okay. So first of all, don't be afraid to apply. You cannot get hired if you don't apply, and don't let your skills lapse, et cetera, et cetera. A good way to make sure that your skills don't lapse is to find an effect you like and recreate it and put that in your portfolio, like learn about it, and make sure that you replace all of your student work. So that's pretty much the best thing I could say.
Favorite video game visual effect you're jealous of that isn't your own?
Oh man, I love the weather in Red Dead Redemption 2. I love it. Like with the lightning storm is my favorite, and I saw that and I was like, I want to bring that to my own work, but we don't have the system for it yet, but I want to work on the system, and I just stared at it for hours and I love it. So
just a question on environmental effects and portfolio artists. Do you recommend that they use environmental effects in their portfolios, or is there like a specific kind that you would say? Explosions,
yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, I think environment effects are also important because it's cool to see a range of like how you can decorate an area while being subtle. Definitely include it. Don't make it the main highlight of your portfolio unless that's a position that you're going for is specifically environment. But yeah, definitely don't leave it out because that's a skill everyone has to have. So please do.
What are you most excited about for the future of real-time visual effects?
Oh, goodness. I really just kind of want to see what, with all the powerful new platforms coming out, just the ability to really unleash us is pretty fun. And then I'm also excited to see the new blood that comes into the industry. I'm always excited when somebody else that is new comes in just because they have a different set of skills than I do because, they've learned in the now when things are hot and ready. So it's important to learn from the new people that come in so you can keep up to date. And then also, make sure that share your veteran knowledge with them as well, because there's some things you can only learn through repetition. And sometimes in school, people focus too much on like, oh, here's this new technique or, new program. And they kind of forget about the very basics. So sometimes it's like, okay, you don't have those tools. Like I said, it comes back to, hey, you just have one texture or you have no textures. Like what can you do with that? And you can't stimulate. So it's important because everybody has these gaps that they share their information, and don't be afraid of new people coming in. They're not going to take your job. The only reason you lose your job is if you refuse to grow. So yeah, it's just seeing the new blood and just seeing what we can do with the blooming technical things that are coming is pretty cool.
What question do you never get asked that you wish you were asked for more often?
Okay, so I would like to be asked about imposter syndrome because I think a lot of people don't realize how common that is amongst even your idols that have been in the industry for a long time. And a lot of people are scared and they feel like it's only them And to clarify, imposter syndrome is when you feel like you don't belong somewhere, that you feel like you are a tiny fish in a huge pond and that someone made a mistake hiring you, and that people are going to find out that they made that mistake, or you're going to embarrass yourself. I'm amazed. Not only did it affect me immensely when I started out, especially at Bungie, where, hey, all of a sudden I'm working with all of these legendary people that I looked up to, but figuring out that the people that I looked up to, even to this day, still struggle with that themselves. And so it's important to talk about it and understand that it's not you. It's very common in artists. I would like more people to know about it, just so that they can really understand it's okay. Talk to your managers about it. I'd like managers and companies to understand what it is and how it doesn't mean that an artist is something you can throw away. It's something that's easy to work through just with the support and encouragement. And I think it's one of the things that will destroy a lot of artists when they get into the industry without having the support from everybody else for it. So
awesome. Vinessa, any final thoughts or things to plug? Anything you want to promote?
Oh, goodness. The new seasons of Destiny 2 are going to be pretty cool. But
your effect's going to be in it, right? The one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. So
if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you? If they have questions, they want to follow up and be like, hey, I heard this in the interview.
They can email me at vinessa.mayer@gmail.com, and that's spelled VINESSA.MAYER@gmail.com.
And guys, I'll include a link to her website, so if you want to see some of the awesome work she's done as well. Mm-hmm. Cool. Vinessa, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and share your awesome story. We learned a whole bunch, and I'm looking forward to seeing the new effects that you're coming out with the new patch for Destiny 2.
Cool. Thank you for having me, and this is pretty awesome. It's a good exercise in communication.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening to today's episode with Vinessa, a truly amazing woman, and it's so great to hear her journey. One of the things she talked about was imposter syndrome, and I want to reiterate that this is something that all artists experience at one time or another, especially those who first start off in their job. Remember what Vinessa said. She said that you were chosen for a reason. They would have not put you in that position if they did not believe you could do the job. So have some confidence in yourself, and if you really do struggle, just talk it out with somebody in the office, and they're more than willing to help you work through the hashes and prove that your reason for being there matters. A lot of times I talk to artists that are bigger in the industry, but I think it's equally important to talk to people that fall under the radar, like Vinessa, because no matter how big or small you are, your contribution to the community and just the field of visual effects matters. So if you're somebody who wants to voice your thoughts on the podcast, feel free to reach out to me and we can get you on. It's very important that we have a diverse cast, not just the US, not just men, not just women, not just new, not just old. Everybody should be an inclusive piece. Your voice matters. Our next episode is actually going to be with Florian Smoka, who just released Desperados 3 out into the Steam market, along with PS4 and some other systems. So look forward to that. Until next time, guys, rock on.